Hi, I'm John Waterhouse, and this is Weekday Wisdom. My question for you today is, does your life make a difference? Now, the easy answer would be yes, but I actually have statistics for you, at least one. Here goes. 1/10 of 1% of people unified by a single cause can change the consciousness of the world. That's pretty incredible. And that's what has been taught by prophets and sages for centuries. It's not new information, but in recent years, there has been a book published called Power versus Force. And in it, David Hawkins shares his research that shows how one person, a single person, can raise the consciousness of as many as 70 million people. So a small group of people could actually change the entire consciousness of the planet. And of course, it has happened. But we're going to deal with one person. That's you, and that's me. So each time one of us shifts into a higher state of consciousness, it can have an incredible effect on literally millions of people. Scientific research has begun to further validate the powerful effects that we as individuals have. One thing that I learned about years ago is that the US military did some interesting experiments with blood cells. They wanted to see what the electrical changes were in the DNA, so they wanted to measure it. And the way they did their experiments was they took white blood cells from donors and sent the donor into one room and had the collected DNA in those white blood cells in another room in the same building. And when the donor was subjected to emotional stimulation, like video clips and emotional peaks and valleys were measured in that individual, they found that the DNA responded with the same peaks and valleys as the person did. Not close to the same time, but at exactly the same time. There was no lagging, there was no transmission time. It happened precisely at exactly the same time in a tray, a petri dish in one room, and in the body of the donor in another room. So they said, well, how does this work? So they moved out, took those DNA samples as far as 50 miles away, and found that the donor and the DNA still had the same responses at the same time, which tells us that we're not our bodies, but that our bodies respond outside of time. And I think that's an amazing thing to understand. And not only are we influencing the cells of our body by our emotional state, but we're influencing those around us. The experimenters concluded that through these unrecognized forms of energy, that there was something definitely going on. And it's the same conclusion that Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance came to when he suggested that we live in a unified field of consciousness that connects us all. And this idea of oneness, which we teach at our center, which is the primary focus of our center, continues to reveal itself in ideas. And more, even in the general public, the ideas of separateness are falling away. As long ago as the 1960s, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about oneness. He said that through our scientific genius, we had made great progress as being a world neighborhood. And now, through our spiritual genius, it was our job to become a brotherhood. We're all involved in a single process. Wherever one thing happens to one person, it affects all of us in some way, indirectly. We are all links to a great chain of humanity. We have before us a glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of our civilization. We are just that powerful. Inside each of us, we house the potential to change the world. But what is the mechanism that we use to change these higher levels of consciousness? How does one go about raising their vibrational energy? Well, the first step is awareness. And when we envision the world we want to live in, when we've begun the process of change, when we can see clearly that vision and feel it in our bodies as though it already exists, the change happens faster. There's old sayings like energy flows where attention goes, or like attracts like. And that's exactly why some people who are incredibly productive tend to produce more wealth. It's why people who are confident tend to attract confident, upbeat friends and colleagues. And by equal measure, some that are whiners and complainers tend to surround themselves with people who whine and complain. So the first step in creating a vision for your world and my world is for us to see it the way we want it to be. The second step is to live that vision. So living the vision allows us to raise our personal vibration. So what does living in the vision really mean? Well, here's a quote from Marianne Williamson in her book, Healing the Soul of America. She says, the love so many of us would like to inject into the veins of civilization must first pour into us. Society will not transform until we transform. What's wrong out there is but a mere reflection of what's wrong in here. Once we recognize that our minds are the casual level of worldly events, then we are free to seek a change in the world by changing our thoughts about the world. By changing the way we see the world and ourselves, we are participating in the evolution of humankind. By staying centered in love and avoiding judgments and criticism of others, we truly are making the world a better place. This is why we have spiritual community and why we must be vigilant through this pandemic, because many of us are staying away and falling prey to these ways of thinking that do not support having a better world. We're secluded and separate, and it's really only through little things like these weekday wisdoms and other recordings that some people are connecting with us. Nonetheless, it still takes a small portion of the population to shift in order to make what is happening right here and right now better for everyone. We're all connected. Everything we think, feel, and do affects the whole. We are indeed one. So I invite you, be the difference in every way that you can by paying attention to what you think, what you feel, and what you do, because it truly does make a difference. And with that, please have a fantastic day, and I'll see you again soon.